Welcome to It's a Woman's World, a show which discusses any and all topics under the sun from a woman's point of view. Our program believes that women should be treated with respect at all times and in all places. Here's today's moderator, Nadia Giordana.
Hello and welcome to It's a Woman's World. I'm Nadia Giordana, and we have an interesting show for you and a particularly interesting guest. But first, let me introduce my co-hosts. We've got Barbara Lavalure. Welcome, Barbara. I'm so glad you could be on the show today.
Thank you. I'm looking forward to it.
And Dr. Susan Strauss, thank you for being here today.
Thank you, and I'm looking forward to us doing this via Zoom. This will be a first.
This is one of the firsts for us to use Zoom in a format for our program. And here's what's going on here today. Our regular host, Beverly Crosby, has been called away on a family emergency, and she would have been our host here today. Therefore, I'm sitting in for her. But we wish her all the best in what's happening. And I also am our illustrious guest. So here I am. I'm the editor and publisher of Wink Writers in the Know magazine. And I'll turn it over to Barbara, who had a question for me earlier. I'd like you to start.
Thank you, Nadia. I've really been proud to be associated with Wink for the last couple of years. When I first met you and you told me about the magazine, we'd love to hear the story of how Wink got started, when that was, and how you came up with the idea and the format.
You know, it's a three-stage story how this came about years ago, and we're talking 1994 to about whatever 5 years after that is. 1998 or 9, I had a magazine, Poetry in Motion magazine. And because I loved writing poetry, I had done a couple of anthologies, and I had a database of people and names that were from all over the world. And I thought, it'd be fun to do a little magazine. And I see these other magazines. The 80s was a big heyday for grassroots little lit mags, and I became one of those. And Poetry in Motion magazine lasted for about 5 years when and we actually made our living with that magazine, had a good circulation. But I had to, let's put it this way, I had to kind of close it down to get a real job, and that made me very sad. But I worked for a while, and then in 2006, I started another magazine called Mississippi Crow, because that's where I lived at the time, Mississippi and Crow Rivers. And that lasted for 5 years, and that was pure fun and for all the same reasons. But I cannot for the life of me remember the reason I shut that one down, but it probably had to do very similar to the first. I probably got too busy. But I've retired since then, and the years have passed. And I was walking 3 years ago now, taking a walk, and it's dangerous when I get an idea, because I got the idea on my walk, and by the time I got back to my house, I had the name of the magazine down, Wink Writers in the Know, W-I-N-K for Writers in the Know. And the whole format of the magazine was worked out in my head. I got to work on it that afternoon, and in less than a week, I had the basic of the thing together, and started putting out an email to that old 10-year-old database of people from all over the world that had contributed to past magazines. So we were on a roll. And of course, I know ladies like you two, and all the ladies in my writers group. And that's how it all got started.
I don't know how anybody could be that creative to go on a walk, come up with the name, the format. have you always been that creative? I mean, really, I mean that sincerely. I don't know how anybody can be like that. Has that always been part of your repertoire?
Kind of, yes. The creative part, I don't recall that except until recent years that I was that impulsive to where I'd get the idea and not think it fully through until I'm in it before I've even thought about whether or not I can do it or whether it's feasible or possible. So that's the thing that I had not always done. And now it's just more than ever that if I get an idea, it's like this, not this TV show, but one like this that I do. When the COVID-19 came in and I got busy with Zoom, and our TV show was doing this program, and we're converting over for the time being. I thought, oh, well, then I'll do one of my own too. And so that's in the works in the wings.
But that's a real gift, Nadia, I think.
Yes.
And who cares if you don't have all the logistics? You just assume that it'll all fall into place. I really admire that. I wish I had that capability.
Yeah, and you have to be able to accept that you're going to make mistakes, and you're going to make them in front of people, and you're going to have to be okay with that, because everybody's going to see the mistake, and you're just going to have to go on from there. And that's freeing.
It would be. Well, when you think about mistakes, what kinds of mistakes do you even make?
Oh gosh, I'm trying to think now. It's been a while since something really embarrassing has happened. But I flub things that I say. I have to start and stop. Something goofy is going on in the background when I'm doing video. When I'm doing that, and when I'm the only one doing it, I don't have anyone to tell me that my collar's all wrong.
Yeah.
Or one time my skirt was kind of up way high. It looked like I thought I looked like a hooker on the show there. Things like that.
Oh my. I'm kind of interested, and I believe our viewers will be interested too, in what you look for in the submissions that you receive.
I look for, first of all, the magazine is geared towards talent of a wide range.
Mm-hmm.
I look for artwork, I look for poetry, I look for short stories, I look for flash fiction. I prefer free verse, but I never say no to a well-crafted form poetry.
What's flash fiction? Very quickly. I don't know what that is.
Fiction,
I was going to ask the same question. Thank you for asking that, Susan.
Flash fiction, Connie asked me that question too, and I thought everybody knew that answer. It's super short. It's a paragraph. It's 2 paragraphs, and editors will argue. Some editors say if it's under 5,000 words, it's flash fiction. What? I say if it's under 1,000 words, it's probably flash fiction. But for me, 500 words or less, that's really flash fiction. The rest are all short stories. But I look for a good story. I look for an interesting twist at the end. I'll take a piece less well written if it's got an interesting story and a twist at the end than a perfectly written, well-crafted snapshot of 2 people sitting there eating 1 forkful at a time, a photo, a moment in time, and nothing happens. But it's flawlessly written. I'll take the other piece that maybe our editors will have to help a little bit if it's more interesting. And in poetry, almost anything goes, and we can have some fun conversations with Connie Anderson, our illustrious editor, who has a thing for not caring that much for free verse and what she calls weird ass poetry. And I understand what she's talking about. I do understand it, but there's a place for that too. And as far as artwork and photography, I love good photography. Barbara, you have helped immensely with photography in the magazine and artwork. And I don't think I have one of yours, Barbara, but
I do.
Oh, good. Yes, that's one of my favorite
Oh.
covers.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
absolutely.
And this one too, that's from
Yep.
Seattle Outdoor Public Art
Yeah,
Place. That's the back cover.
Yeah, that's flawlessly beautiful. And when for artwork and paintings, this one was painted by a young woman who has Down syndrome.
Oh, wow.
And it's a unique use of colors. That's a tree.
I
The
love the color.
ground below is blue, but the more I look at it, there's more to love in here. And knowing that the young lady has Down syndrome and took the time to make a beautiful oil painting, this magazine has a place for artists of all ranges and all unique types of talent. And that's the purpose for it.
How many submissions do you get? And do they come in like everybody has to submit within a certain time frame in a month or in a week? Or how does that work? If any of the viewers are thinking, gee, I'd like to submit something.
Used to be in the first magazine, the flow was a mailbox full every single day, and it was a huge job. But that was a more commercial magazine. I'm doing this for the love of it. So I'm not trying to have my mailbox full every day. I want a good steady trickle all the time, which is what I've got now. Every time it gets a little bit low, I send out an email blast to that base, or I tell this group of ladies that you two are both part of about needing some material. What was the other part of that question? I forgot.
If there was a cutoff time in terms of submissions, but it sounds like no.
No, that's the other thing. It's a rolling submission. If I get too much material for one issue, I push it back to the next issue. I'll tell the people this is good for issue 14, but your other thing, I like that too, but I'm going to put that in issue 15 later. Or sometimes I'm a little slow to answer, and I tell the group that I won't be answering for a while, but you'll hear from me sooner or later. So it's all very laid back. If you send a submission, it'll eventually get addressed, and it just might not be in the first upcoming magazine.
In addition to the variety of artistic expression, you know, you mentioned poetry and prose, and there's essays and photos and graphic design and haikus and flash fiction. Another thing that I love about the magazine is that it's got an incredible international variety of contributors. That's one of the first things I look at. I look at the front cover first, the back cover second, and then I look who has submitted and where are they from? How did that happen?
Yes, and that's real interesting. A few were from way back, but most of the international people now have come along because I've gotten into different listings, Poetry Magazine, Writer's Digest, Writer's Market, Duotrope is another one, and those are market listings that writers can go to, and they can look up different magazines and look up different formats, different things that they want, and they find me. Mm-hmm. And I just love it when they're from faraway countries. It's just a wonderful, wonderful thing. And I also once in a while make allowances for language differences. Mm-hmm. Sometimes our editors have to work a little bit harder, but embarrassingly, some of these international writers have a greater command and a bigger vocabulary than I do, and they do a fantastic job of writing in the English language.
Do you find that the international folks, do they tend to come primarily from a certain country than others? I mean, is Israel, for example, more dominant, or someplace else in Europe? What do you find with your international contributors? There
seems to be a preponderance of the Middle Eastern countries right now, and India. That seems to be a greater area. A little bit from Italy and Spain and France, Germany, Ireland. There's 2 or 3
Oh.
Irishmen sending me material lately. And one came from Malta. You know Malta, Sue.
Oh, yeah.
So there's one person, I don't remember the name, who's from Malta, and I would not have known where that was hadn't you not just recently been there. And yeah, India is real big. They've got some great writers coming from there.
When you think about your contributions that come in, do the contributions tend to focus more on, you know, photography or on poetry or on this flash fiction? What do you tend to receive the most of?
Mostly poetry.
Oh, really? And I think that's hard to write.
Yeah, It kind of is in a lot of ways, but there's a lot of poets out there, and yeah, that's what I get the most. And I get longer short stories more than I get the super short stuff, and we don't have room for longer short stories. I don't get much photography, so I'm grateful for the photographers that I do get. I don't get much artwork, so I'm grateful for the ones that do come in. And but yeah, I get a lot of poetry.
Do you have any taboo topics that you just don't want to promote or don't want to include? I don't recall ever seeing anything political, but you know, I'd be interested in what you have to say about that.
Yeah, I'm not interested. We're not meant to be a political platform, not meant to be theological or religious. I don't want to stir up and fan those flames. I want this magazine to be fun, but it's okay to talk about almost virtually any other serious subject, and we certainly have had we've had stories about rape and all of the different kinds of things that can happen to people that you don't like to mention. We've had a lot of serious stories, and of course, but I still lean towards humor.
Yeah.
Oh,
well, that's fun.
Yeah, and it makes it fun to read, and I do read it cover to cover. I expect you do too, Susan. It's just a joy.
It's out of pocket. I love it enough to, and it stays small, and that's why we stay small. You know, if someone wants to figure out where they can go to pick up copies, there's a website, winkwriters.com. And there's lots of information about the magazine there, but it's a hobby. There are no subscriptions. Just go to the website, winkwriters.com, and you'll be able to see how they describe that.
So how many folks receive Wink?
The technical way we send that out is the contributors all get, thank God for the digital age, the digital copies go out to virtually anybody and everybody, and I also make them downloadable. And there are a few gratuitous printed copies that I usually carry around with me, but the official form of the magazine is the digital, which is free.
And how did you come up with that decision?
The ability to get it out there and get it out there for everyone. If I were to, I would like someday to be able to send every contributor a hard copy, but the costs are too high for me at this point. And so I don't do that yet, but that is a dream, a wish that I'd like to do for that. So digital is the way. You know, there's lit mags, there's what do they call them, e-zines, but this is not an e-zine. An e-zine is usually like a website, and there's a rolling list of poetry that people have contributed, and that's all in website format. whereas Wink is the same as the printed that we have, and the digital version of it shows, happens to be a black and white in page here, but it's instead of an easing format where it's just like a website. So there are differences, and it's unique. I haven't seen anyone else quite like me out there in recent years. There might be somebody.
You know, one of the things that I also admire about the magazine is the layout and the use of graphics and
Yes.
the different fonts. I love fonts. I love different fonts, and your headlines are sometimes in a whimsical font, and so I appreciate, and you can acknowledge whomever is responsible for that. I think kudos. Is that you? Well, of course it's you. Anyway, so is there anything else you want to share about the publication that we haven't been savvy enough to ask the question?
Well, I wanted to comment on the layout.
Yeah.
I don't know why I'm frustrated. I guess I'm just a frustrated artist, but I actually like that gosh awful grunt work of the layout and the format and the tweaking and the changing and the eye crossing kind of stuff into the wee hours of the night.
Oh,
I like
really?
doing that stuff. Nobody likes to do that stuff. So I have a unique combination of passions that come out in the magazine. What
so
else?
you're detail oriented.
Yeah.
Oh,
Well, yes and no, though. It has to be that kind of thing, or video editing. It has to be in something I like. If I don't like it, then the details go right out the window.
yeah, yeah.
But I did want to share with you a poem that I'm sure it was in the magazine. There's another one probably too, but I wanted to read one of my poems that I got a kick out of that ended up in the magazine. Another nice thing is that I can get my material past the editors and in print awful easy this way. So,
Yes, right.
Smart.
but yeah, here's one I wanted to read. This kind of says a lot. You know, a lot of the things that we write are mini memoirs. I think of poetry at my age, at over 70, as a lot of my poems are mini memoirs. But here's one titled Love's Lost and Other Laments. There was a time when this would have been a sad poem, and probably a lot longer. But time has passed more than once, and I just can't draw out those old hurts and sad feelings because they don't exist anymore. Oh, they were there back in the day, big time. But time heals is a true statement. Sometimes that means a lot of time. And for me, a lot of time has passed. And I'm okay, even better, because of all those things. So forget it. We're done here. There's no poem to write.
Oh, do I love that.
You know, in the Zoom calls I'm doing, this is how you clap. I love it.
And I think probably those of us at our age can relate to it perhaps more than the younger generation.
Yeah, especially, that one. That one is definitely more appreciated by us baby boomer generations.
Yeah.
So do either of you write poetry? I don't think so. You could, Susan. You could, Barbara.
Oh.
You know, I have written a handful, probably not more than a dozen poems in my life for special occasions. I would have a hard time putting my finger on them, though. I'm an international photojournalist, so I write, I blog. Poetry, not so much. I enjoy reading it. I have friends who are poets, but you know what? I think I'll stick to Wink.
Well,
Yeah.
for the last minute or so, tell me just a little bit more about what you do, Barbara, and we'll have Susan quick tell us a little bit about herself. We've got about a minute left.
All right. Well, I love writing. I'm very engaged in what I'm calling the social commons. So social justice, and I'm taking action about things that are happening in our community. So I blog maybe once or twice a month, and that's on a group with North Dakota and Minnesota retired journalists mostly.
Oh,
So, and I take a lot of photographs, and they're all on my Facebook page.
Oh,
And
you're lucky
Susan?
you can do that. Well, I don't think I'm very creative, and I've gotten burned out in writing. I've probably published over 30 book chapters and books and magazine, or well, yeah, journal articles, and I'm just done. And then in my work as an expert witness, I have to write all these darn expert witness reports. I am totally sick of writing. I am so burned out. I'm glad I did it when I did it, but the thought of it, just no way. But I've never tried writing anything fun. I like that poem, for example, and I always think of poetry as it has to rhyme, and I know that that doesn't. And I don't know what you call it when it doesn't, but I like it better when it, what is it?
Free verse.
Free verse. Now maybe that I could do, I don't know, but I'm not particularly creative that way. I've taken a photography class, a couple of them, because I want to learn how to take photography, take photos. I'm learning. I don't have a good eye for it, but I'm learning. And once I retire, then I think I'll have more time to devote to some of those fun things like photography, for example.
I agree with you.
Because I'm not retired yet.
We've
What?
run out of time. Thank you, Susan and Barbara. And thank you, everyone, for watching the show today. We'll see you next time on It's a Woman's World.
This has been fun.
Yeah, thank you.